Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about some of the uniques that have been teased by GGG over the last few days. So if you guys didn't hear already, GGG is trying to revamp around 100 uniques, and from what I've seen so far, if they are all hitters like this, it could be quite interesting for the meta as a whole. Now, obviously, we just have to be a little bit realistic with our expectations as a whole, because they could just be pushing out the most hype ones, and then once patch releases, the rest is just like minion uniques that are just adjusted for their base types, for example. But with that said, let's get into it. Number one is Mokou's Embrace. Now, this ring is quite interesting, and it got reworked. So what the old one used to do is it only gave 20% attack and cast speed, and this one most likely gonna get up to 40. Not really sure if they're gonna stop on 35. It's kind of a weird number, so we're just gonna assume 40 for now. It doesn't have the chance to ignite anymore. It doesn't have the increased fire damage anymore. But what it does have now is a lot more attack and cast speed. And even more interestingly, all damage taken from hits can ignite you, meaning you don't need something like Fulcrum to actually ignite yourself. In fact, somebody on Reddit made a list of all the items that can now ignite you with this ring, and that's Scold's Bridle, Storm Secret, Heartbound Loop, Replica Toolfall, Bone Shatter, and Forbidden Ride. I would assume that if you want to self-ignite yourself, you want to use 2 of these, so the ring options are a little bit less interesting because then you can only use 1. But honestly, this is just so much attack and cast speed. Now, getting attack speed is a lot easier than getting cast speed, so naturally, this ring is probably more interesting for casters. Even more interesting interaction with both the attack speed and cast speed is it is not just attack and cast speed, it is like separated, which means you could scale both theoretically on something like a anomalous kinetic bolt, which gives you increases and reductions to cast speed applied to attack speed and at 125% of the value if you have Ashes of the Stars. And with that combo and 2 Mokou's Embrace, you could get roundabout, I think it's like 180% attack speed or something, because don't forget that there is a catalyst for speed, so if this goes up to 40, it will actually go up to 48. But even without all those things, just getting 48% cast speed, if it's 35, it's obviously, I think, only 42, right? But that is so much cast speed. Getting cast speed is a lot more premium than getting attack speed. Overall, I think this ring opens up a lot of new things. Also, don't forget that attack and cast speed is not just damage, it is also something that makes your build feel a lot better. Number 2 is Bitterdream. I've heard a lot of mixed reactions to this one here. I just want to show you what it did before. This was basically just a complete meme. Kind of good for nothing. There was some very weird combos where sometimes you could make something cost a lot. Like you can make a spell cost, I don't know, like 400 mana. But those were some fringe builds a long time ago, and GGG always immediately nerfed them. So what do we have now? Well, Bitterdream now gives you the same support gems, but they're now all level 50. Now, the obvious combo here is Bitterdream and Squire, right? So you would think, okay, so we got this beefed up, and now you get Squire on top, so you get 3 more supports. There's just a few problems in general with Bitterdream here. And those problems are, number 1, normal gems do not stack with Awakened support gems. And some of these Awakened versions are just crazy. For example, level 5 Awakened Cold Pen gives you actually cold exposure on top of giving you even more pen. What that basically means is the Awakened version overrides the other cold penetration. This basically means you don't want to use Awakened Cold Penetration, which is very weak because you actually want to do that. Same with added cold damage. Every level adds a ton of damage, and on top of that, you get +1 to socketed skills if you have a level 5 Awakened Cold damage. So that is already a huge downside. Number 2 is the mana cost gets completely insane. Like, this is not just a damage buff towards your main skill. These are supports, meaning they will increase your mana like crazy. Like, if your skill costed 50 mana after this one, you're around about at 400. And you might think, well, I have inspiration in there, but don't forget, this is a level 15 inspiration, and you cannot have divergent inspiration. So for example, if you look here, what a lot of builds do with high mana cost is, number 1, you don't get the 34 or even 35% reduced mana cost from a level 21, right? You get a level 15, so you already lose 3%, but you also lose the 10% from Divergent, because it's not a Divergent one, right? You don't have any quality on any of those gems. That's another thing. Solving the mana issue, huge. And by the way, if you should somehow find a way to cheese the mana cost completely, well, you don't spend any mana with your skill, so the inspiration is completely useless. And number 3, the least obvious one is you're actually running out of good support gems to run. So let's think about how many good support gems a cold caster actually has. So Bone Chill, Hypothermia, like Cold Pen you would probably use always. Added cold damage you would probably use. Inspiration you would use. These three are a little bit more weirder, right? You wouldn't really use Bone Chill. Sometimes you use Hypothermia. Ice Bite, not really. But if you look at your cold casters and you would have to replace 3 support gems, what you're going to end up with is stuff like Cruelty Support, for example. Which is straight up like 24% more damage. So we're getting into territory where, simply put, you don't have that many good support gems anymore. So the usefulness of Bitterdream as a whole is just kind of diminished. And last but definitely not least, Cloak of Flame. This one is very weird. A lot of people, when they saw it first, were a little bit skeptical about this one. Is this just for Ignite builds? What does this actually do? But I just want to make you realize how strong this mod down here is. 40% of physical damage taken as fire damage. This basically means that if you take physical damage, it will actually be transformed to taking fire damage, which means it runs against resistances. So if we have that 40% times 0.75. This mod here basically means that you take 30% less physical damage. And you can stack this to 100%, basically making physical not a thing anymore, and then you can just increase your maximum resistances. There's some very interesting builds with this. Now, talking about the weird things about this Cloak of Flame, number one, which I didn't even catch at first, is this does not specify hits. So this also counts for dots like Bleed and some others, which is kind of weird. I mean, obviously that's actually really, really strong because it means that you take less bleed damage, which sometimes can mean the difference of you being able to press your life flask and remove that bleed or not. It should also work with Blood Rage Degen, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyways, that's just something I wanted to note. Then the Fire Res increased Ignite duration is pretty damn good. So people are focusing on this mod, obviously, and we're going to talk about it in a second. When you're min-maxing a build, stuff like this matters. I've seen a lot of people saying basically this is a throwaway stat. I couldn't agree less. When it comes to an item, you really have to look at the full picture, and this fire resistance might free up like 2 suffixes somewhere else. So this is not completely useless. Also, we don't know how high it could go up. It's going to be at least 70. It could be 80 for all I know. Now, secondly, the ignite duration on enemies is very interesting. It could be something that you use on EA, for example, maybe Morph Mischief. Increased ignite duration also allows you to use faster ignites, kind of balances it out. And obviously now let's talk about this mod a little bit more. What can you do with this? So number one, you can just stack up physical taken as Ellie with something like Chieftain and a Taste of Hate. So just with a Cloak of Flame here, Taste of Hate, and you go Chieftain and you take Tassalio right here, you can basically already mitigate like 75% of physical damage, not mitigate, but convert it to Ellie. And if you then have maybe a Watcher's Eye with a few rolls, or you have some Flask effect, you're at 100 and you don't have to care about stuff like armor anymore at all. And you could basically free up 50% of your aura space from Determination. You wouldn't have to run a Granite Flask. You don't have to invest into any armor nodes. You could go stuff like Transcendence. Whether it's actually worth to do so, that's going to be seen, but it's definitely something interesting. Also, something I haven't really seen anybody really talk about is Abysses. I mean, Abysses for certain melee builds is just completely out of this world. It can like double your damage as a helmet. And the thing is, though, you don't really want to die, especially since the armor, even since the armor rework, Abysses is just really, really hard to get going. Really, really hard to just say, okay, I'm just going to die here or there on softcore nowadays because everything hits so hard. So if you can completely convert 100% of physical to elemental, there is no downside to Abysses. The 50% or 40% increased physical damage taken does not work anymore. But overall, some pretty damn cool uniques. I really hope GGG keeps this up and they didn't just show us the most hype ones at the start. I gotta say, my favorite one right now is Mokou's because it makes your build feel a lot better, and there's some ways to maybe exploit it. We're gonna see about that in the future. Overall, I think quirky ones like this that open up new build possibilities are really, really cool. Bitterdream, I'm not really sure what to do with yet, but I'm sure somebody's gonna figure something out. And Cloak of Flame, I'm pretty sure we're gonna hear a little bit more from it. However, the fact that it's an energy shield base and it has like basically no armor evasion might just not cut it. But that's it for the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe. As always, a huge shout out to my Twitch subscribers and my Patreons. I couldn't do videos like this without you. Thank you so much for the support. And yeah, really happy that it's spoiler season again. I will say this, I'm not gonna make a video for every single unique. I'm sorry, I know you guys maybe want it immediately. I just feel kind of stupid putting out like a 2-minute video or whatever. I'm gonna wait until a little bit more of them are here, and then we're gonna talk about them again. I'm also not gonna talk about divination cards. I'm sorry, but I just cannot get hyped by divination cards anymore. Maybe it's a me problem, but I don't know. With that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.